Hey there, fellas. Mike Yarbrough of Wolf and Iron here. Welcome back to a Truck Talk Thursday episode. Happy Truck Talk Thursday to you, fellas. I hope everything's going well for you this morning or this afternoon or this night, whenever you happen to be listening to the podcast. If you're new here, let me just say thanks for tuning in. I'll tell you a little bit about what you're listening to. The Wolf and Iron podcast is what you're tuning into, and we're all about helping men heed the high call that's on our lives. This is the call that says we're to be about more than just the status quo of what it means to be a man, which frankly isn't much these days. And we're to take up this notion that men are called to be virtuous, to be leaders, to be example setters, to be excellent husbands and fathers, and so many other things in our lives that really require us to be the best men that we can be. That's the high call, fellas. And this Truck Talk Thursday podcast is something that we do every Thursday, as you might imagine, as it's named, where I drive around in my truck and I just talk to you guys about whatever's on my heart, whatever's on my mind, some manly thing that I think men want to hear about, need to hear about, and we get away from all the fluff and any kind of intro stuff, and so it's just straight into me speaking to you guys. And today we're going to be talking about the thief of joy. And how we've often heard that comparison is the thief of joy, and that's not really true. Sometimes when we have these trite sayings like this, comparison is the thief of joy, and they really just become cliche, and so we do our best not to compare ourselves to others. We've probably even heard that as well. Don't compare yourselves to others. But comparison isn't the thief of joy. I think there are a lot of things that could steal joy from you, but in relation to that particular phrase, it's really envy. Envy is what steals our joy so often. And let me just make a clarification here between the terms jealousy and envy, because we use these interchangeably, but they're not the same. Just a little education here. You guys get this for free. Envy, when we talk about envy, this is the desire to have something that is rightfully somebody else's. So someone else has a nice car, someone else has a nice wife, a nice house, whatever it may be. Or if we're going by the biblical example, someone has a nice donkey or an ass, and you covet that, you want that, then that's envy, because it's rightfully theirs. It doesn't rightfully belong to you. Jealousy, on the other hand, is to desire something that is rightfully yours. And so, once again, biblical example, God is jealous for his praise, for his devotion. That's rightfully his. If you have a nice car and somebody comes and takes it from you, you can be jealous to get your car back. And I think in some ways we can be jealous to become the kind of men that we most want to be. There's a certain kind of man that we long to be, and we can be jealous to be that kind of man. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we should be envious of other people and of what they've accomplished. So when we talk about comparison being the thief of joy, what we're really trying to get to there is that envy that comes from comparison is the thief of joy. But comparison, we've got to have that, guys. We've got to have comparison. Everything that we do, just about everything that we believe, when we talk about good and evil, right and wrong, comes from some sense of relativism and comparison between one thing and another thing. We can't function without comparing ourselves to somebody else. We can't function in terms of our own personal growth without comparing ourselves either to the man that we are today and the man we want to be, or the man we used to be and the man that we've become, or comparing ourselves to where we want our bank account to be versus where it is, and those kinds of things. So comparison is going to happen. The main thing we need to think about here is that, are we comparing ourselves to other people and always seeing ourselves as a shortcoming of some kind? We're the guy that's always left behind. We're the guy who's always fallen short of whatever that other person has. Now, if that's the case, you've got either you're dealing with envy, which is a good chance, you're dealing with pride, believe it or not, or you're dealing with some kind of self-pity, which a lot of times is rooted in pride as well. I ought to be. It's all about me. That's a very prideful type of way of looking at the world. But the way a man compares himself to other people, and even to himself, is somewhat objectively. we look at the way somebody else is living their life or the success that someone else has. And believe me, as somebody who's in the social media, blogging, podcast world, there are plenty of people for me to compare myself to, and I do, to see where they are, what they're doing, how successful they've been, what's working for them, what's not working for me. But if you do that as an apples to apples type of thing, you're going to be disappointed, because there's always somebody out there who's doing it better than you are. But if you can think about it objectively, and you can use the comparison of yourself and what you're doing in life against somebody else's accomplishments, what you should take away from that is actually inspiration, not envy. You ought to look at someone else and their accomplishments and go, that person is crushing it. That person is just doing an amazing job. I wish I could do what that person is doing. And look, they've shown that it's possible. It must mean that it's possible for me as well. That takes an objective mindset. How does that work? When we do the comparison, we compare the thing, not ourselves, not our own personal worth. That doesn't get wrapped up in it. Not our pride, our ego, and that kind of stuff. That stuff gets left behind. When a man is comparing himself to another man, or to himself and where he wants to be, or really goal setting is really what it should be. What goal am I trying to achieve? And that goal is what gets placed on the table, and it gets compared with how other people are going about achieving their goals. When we do it that way, guys, comparison is a good thing. Comparison isn't something that we should avoid. Don't try to avoid falling into the trap of so-and-so is doing better than I am, so therefore I'm not going to follow them or listen to them, or what have you. No. You need to get to a place where you're beyond that and grow through that and say, I want to be inspired by what somebody's doing. Yeah, there may be that moment of envy. That moment says, I wish I was there. I wish I had accomplished this much in that amount of time. I wish my bank account looked like this. I wish my marriage looked like this. I wish my house was in order. But you need to grab that sucker by the throat and say, okay, I'm going to put you over here and put you on the table. And I'm going to move you from self-worth, self-evaluation, and I'm going to say, how do I make a goal out of this? How do I make this inspirational and objective? Once you can do that, you've overcome envy. Another thing about envy, guys, is that when we fall into a trap of comparing ourselves to other people, and we secretly, or maybe even openly, get into a state of envy, or we so badly want what that person has, and we begin to talk that other person down, we begin to tear them down as if they ought not have that. They don't deserve what they've got. They haven't worked as hard as I have. When we get into that place, guys, there's all kinds of bitterness that just starts to rot us. And that does take away our joy. It actually takes away the joy of people who know us as well, because we become like this parasite that's just sucking energy out of everybody. And it's all going to the hatred of what this other person has. I'm always reminded about the greatest commandments. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. I imagine that's pretty important. I imagine when Jesus boiled that down for us, he was like, this is important, guys. Instead of one commandment, I'm going to give you two. And really, there's kind of three in there. And I imagine there's some bad things that go along with not doing those things. I can't think of a more obvious way to not love our neighbors and not love ourselves than to really feel envious towards somebody and to really hate what they have, to want what they have, to hate how they've gone about getting it. Maybe they're experiencing blessings they don't deserve. Who knows? That could be appropriate. That could be legitimate. But when you're hating somebody for what they have, guys, that's not good. It's not good for our minds. It's not good for our, just biologically, it's not good. That's been shown. That kind of envy rots the bones. So guys, let's move past that. If you've been dealing with some kind of comparison trap, you're looking on Instagram, you're looking on Facebook, and you're seeing what other people have, what other people have got going on. One, recognize that it's social media, so there you go. 2, recognize that some of that is material for inspiration. You see that friend going on a trip, going overseas, checking out things, posting all kinds of pictures. Instead of saying, why do they get to do that? I want to be doing that. Objectify that. Set a goal for it. Say, look, if that person can do it, then I know I can do it. I know it's possible. And perhaps it's not as hard as I make it out to be. Maybe they're doing something right. Maybe I need to learn from them instead of being envious of them. So hopefully that's helpful, guys. Once again, happy Truck Talk Thursday to you. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys want to be a part of some of these kinds of conversations, these kind of deep thoughts, head over to our Wolf and Iron community. And you can do that by going to wolfandiron.com/thegroup. That'll take you over to our free Facebook page, Facebook group actually, where you'll be able to sign up there. We've got about 2,500 guys or so in the group right now. Just a fantastic group of men. We turn away a lot of guys, actually, believe it or not. We turn away a lot of guys because we want to keep the riffraff out. We have guys answer some questions up front just to see if they're a good fit. And if they're not, they don't get in. This keeps the caliber of men high, keeps the caliber of conversations high over there. And look, I think it's the right place for you to be. If you agree, head on over there, wolfandiron.com/thegroup. I look forward to seeing you over there. Take care.